Hey guys, it's Pelican here and welcome to my Magsorc Zerg Bomber build for the current Dragonhold patch as well as the upcoming DLC. So I've decided to upload this Zerg Bomb build video because as you know, Mid-Year Mayhem has just started, so I thought it would be appropriate to share a Zerg Bomb build video for that. And also because for the upcoming DLC, it doesn't look like any of the changes is going to affect this build. So this can probably last at least 2 patches. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Now before I get into the build setup, I just want to give you an idea of how it works. So firstly, I will cast my buffs, which are channel acceleration for the minor force and critical surge for major sorcery. Then I will get into overload form on my back bar. Once I'm ready to go in, I will activate proximity detonation and immediately pop my stealth potion. Now I will look for the best target, which is usually the most centralized person, and with around 3 to 4 seconds left on my proxy, I will cast Crystal Blast on him. I will then immediately follow up with a meteor and then do an overload-like attack and streak into the group. The meteor and the proxy deck will land immediately after. When any of the players die, they will proc the Vicious Death set I'm wearing and explode for more damage to nearby enemies, which will cause a chain reaction. Now you might be wondering how I casted Overload after a meteor, and it's due to a poor skill design which allows you to fire off one overload if you get into overload mode on one bar and then spend all your ultimate on another. Now I'll be going through the build setup. Firstly, I'll be going through my gear setup. I'm running 2-piece Balorgh, 5-piece Spinner, and 5-piece Vicious Death. Balorgh is the best monster set for Zerg bombing. It gives you a lot of spell damage when you consume your ultimate, and is equals to twice the amount of total ultimate consumed. That means that if I have 300 ultimate, I will get 600 spell damage for 10 seconds when I cast it. It doesn't matter how much your ultimate costs. What matters is how much ultimate you have when you cast it. So ideally you want 500 ultimate, which is the maximum when you cast it. An alternative to Balorgh is Grofda. It used to be the go-to monster set before Balorgh came out. Next up is Vicious Death. Now this set is mandatory for any Zerg bomb build because if you don't have this, you will only get 2 or 3 people the most. This will turn a 2 or 3 person bomb into as much as 20 people. So basically when you kill a player, they will explode for a lot of damage to all other players in a 4-meter radius, and there's no limit on how many players it can hit. The main downside of this set is that the radius is very small. It's only 4 meters, and that is as wide as Liquid Lightning. So the next set is Spinners. This will just buff your damage. The reason I chose Spinners is because Spell Pen is one of the only things besides stuff like Minor Berserk that will buff Vicious Death. So having more Spell Pen not only increases your base burst, it will also increase the damage of Vicious Death. An alternative to Spinners will be New Moon's Acolyte. I think NMA actually has gives you more damage on your initial burst, but it doesn't buff the damage of Vicious Death as much. For my traits, I'm running all Divines for maximum damage, and of course all max magicka glyphs. And for my jewelry traits, ideally you will want all infused spell damage, but I chose to go 1 arcane on this because it's not golded out, so I feel like I didn't really need to transmute this. For my front bar, I'm running dual wield swords. This will give you the most base damage. You want Nirn on the main hand and Sharpen on the offhand. For the enchantments, you can go weapon damage because we are using overload in this combo, and that will proc the weapon damage before your meteor hits. And for my back bar, I'm running a restoration staff with decisive trait. It doesn't matter what set this is, and I chose to go with this set because it gives me a magicka recovery on the 2-piece. And since I'm on a Zerg bomb build, I have basically 0 sustain, so this will help a bit with the sustain. Next, I'll be going through my skill setup. On my front bar, I'm running Inner Light, Crystal Blast, Streak, Camo Hunter, and Bound Aegis. And for my ultimate, I'm running Ice Comet. Inner Light will give you your spell crit as well as 7% more max magicka, so that will give you more damage. Crystal Blast is the precursor to your combo. It's the first skill that you cast. It does a good amount of damage to the main target and surrounding enemies. So the main purpose of this skill is to soften up all the enemies in the group, so that your follow-up Ice Comet and Proxy deck can kill them more easily. Although it doesn't say in the tooltip, the AoE of this skill is pretty large. It's around 8 meters in size, so that's around the same as Proxy deck. Another benefit of this skill is that it stuns the main target, and since you're casting Meteor on the main target as well, that will prevent him from running out of the group and allow your Ice Comet to land more reliably. On top of that, it also procs the exploitation passive, which gives you even more spell crit. The next skill is Streak. This is a very important skill because it will stun all the enemies in the group, except the ones who are mounted. That's because the stun cannot be dodged or blocked. So even if most of the people in the group are holding block, you can still Zerg bomb them. So that's one of the main benefits of this build. On top of that, it also does a good amount of damage to enemies who are behind the final location, adding even more damage to your burst. The distance of Streak is 15 meters, and it's very important to get used to this distance because you want to streak directly into the center of the group and not too far out. So you can practice around with the distance. Again, this skill doesn't say the size of the AoE from the final location, but I estimate it to be around 5 to 6 meters, which is around the size of Ice Comet. The next skill is Camo Hunter. This will give you your minor berserk. Now, although it says that it will only proc the minor berserk if you deal damage from behind the enemy, since you are doing a lot of AoE damage into a group, it is guaranteed to proc. As you can see, it proc there. So this is a 100% guarantee proc on minor berserk, and that will apply to your follow-up Ice Comet and your Proxy deck, as well as Vicious Death. Finally, we have Bound Aegis. Just like Inner Light, this skill is just a passive. It gives you 8% more max magicka, which will increase your damage. For my ultimate, I'm running Ice Comet. You can also choose to run a Shooting Star. Ice Comet has more damage, but since we are Zerg bombing, Shooting Star can be really helpful because it gives you 12 ultimate for every enemy hit. The main drawback of this ability is the small radius. It's only 5 meters compared to Proxy deck, which is 8 meters. So compared to traditional Mag Knight Blade bombers, this Zerg bomb setup has a much smaller radius. However, it makes up for that by having a lot more damage. On my back bar, I'm running Invigorating Drain, Proxy deck, Channel Acceleration, Hardened Ward, Crit Surge, and Power Overload. Invigorating Drain is very useful for a Zerg bomber. That's because it gives you an insane amount of ultimate recovery. So when you're not bombing, you can use this skill to get your ult up to 500 very quickly. As you can see, the amount of ultimate it gives you is insane. Moving on, we have Proxy deck. This is probably the hardest skill on this setup to master because it requires perfect timing. The basic idea of this skill is that once you cast it, it will start an 8-second timer, and once this timer expires, it will explode in an 8-meter radius and deal a lot of damage. And this damage will increase for every enemy in the area, which includes NPCs such as guards. So when you're bombing large groups, you can get some pretty insane damage off of this because there's no limit on how high the damage can go. However, as I said, it's a very hard skill to master because of the timing. So now I'm going to show you some clips of me Zerg bombing, and on the first clip you can see that I started my combo too late, so my Proxy deck went off too early and didn't hit the group. And on my second clip, I started the combo too early, so my proxy deck ended up going off too late, and it didn't get the full effect because most of the enemies have already died. So ideally, you want to start casting your combo when you have about 3 to 4 seconds left on your proxy deck, and that will allow your proxy deck to go off in time right after you streak and before the meteor lands. That is the ideal time for the proxy deck to go off. Now, casting this skill also pulls you out of stealth, so make sure you are behind cover and you are unseen, because once enemies see you coming, you'll be a lot harder to Zerg bomb them. And that is why we also pop an invisibility potion right after you use proxy deck. The next skill we have is channel acceleration. This will give you your minor force, which will increase your critical damage, and it also gives you movement speed, which is very useful because when you are able to move faster, you can start off from a greater distance and still make it in time to the group. The next skill is hardened ward. Honestly, it doesn't matter what skill you slot here. I just slot hardened ward so that when I'm not bombing, I can have some form of defense. The next skill is crit surge. This will give you your spell damage, and it also gives you some healing, so that will be useful for surviving when you are not Zerg bombing. Finally, we have power overload for our ultimate. The main purpose of this is to deal additional single target damage to the main target so that he will die more easily and start a chain reaction. Since it's considered a light attack, it will also proc the weapon damage enchantment, and it's also empowered by your Ice Comet because of the Mage's Guild passive. So as mentioned before, due to the poor design of this skill, when you activate it on your back bar and then spend all your ultimate on the front bar, you can still fire off one additional overload after your meteor. So you want this morph because it does more damage than the other morph. Other than that, for my attributes, I'm running all points in the max magicka for the most damage, and for my Mundus, I'm running the levers for more spell pen. As mentioned before, spell pen is very useful for a Zerg bomber because not only does it buff your ability damage, it also buffs vicious death damage, and also having more spell pen is how you defeat tankier targets with a lot of resistance. And since you are Zerg bombing, you are guaranteed to kill most of the squishier targets, and in order to kill tankier targets, having more spell pen will be very helpful for that. For my food, I'm running the max magicka bi-stat food. I'm running the Arteum pickled fish bowl, which is basically just an advanced version of your standard bi-stat food, and it's more expensive. However, both will work, and if you are on a budget, you can use this instead. It's only a minimal damage loss. The reason I'm not using green food is because I find that the max HP is helpful for my survival when I'm not Zerg bombing, or even when I'm Zerg bombing. So I prefer having using the bi-stat food over the green food. And for my potions, I'm using stealth potions. I'm using the ones that gives me immovability. Now, immovability is very important when you're Zerg bombing because there will be a 1 to 2 second period where you are completely vulnerable to attacks, and having immovability will prevent you from getting CC'd and allow you to get into the center of the group for your proxy deck to take effect. So it's important to be able to use this potion very economically. Since we are not a Nightblade, we are unable to stealth on demand. So you have to make use of this potion very carefully, because you can only use it once every 45 seconds. And the only time, in my opinion, when you should use it is right after you cast a proxy deck. So when you are moving around, try to stay in stealth. Try to stay out of try to not go near NPCs or other players, because you will not be able to cloak away if you are detected. However, you can still streak away very quickly. So other than that, I'm also a stage 4 vampire. This is very important because of the Darkstalker ability. As mentioned, we don't have any other way of sticking around, so having this skill will allow you to move at full speed when you're in stealth, and lets you get into position a lot quicker. So other than that, I'm also a high elf. This is the best race for this build because it has the most damage. You have 2000 max magicka as well as 258 spell damage. Also, make sure to have your Undaunted passive. We are running a 5-1-1 setup for the most max magicka. So other than that, make sure to have all your passives. For the dual wield, this is the most important passive. The rest of this passive doesn't really matter because this passive only affects your weapon damage, and the other 3 passives only affects your dual wield abilities. So only this passive will be necessary. Lastly, I'll be going through my CP setup. On the blue tree, I'm running 72 Elf Bond, 64 Ally Expert, 53 Spell Erosion, and 81 Master at Arms. Nothing in this tree. For the red tree, it's not really important, so I'm just using my standard red tree setup for my 1vx builds. For the green tree, I'm running 34 in the Warlock, 3 Sprinter, 1 Siphoner, 49 Alchemist, 37 Tenacity, 11 Mooncalf. Since we are going to be sneaking around a lot, I decided to put 59 into Shade to reduce the cost of sneak, and I also run 20 Shadow Ward and 56 Tumbling. So that's all for the build video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you will find this build very useful and fun during this mid-year mayhem event. And as mentioned at the start, this will still be viable next patch unless they make some future PTS changes, so I'll keep you guys updated. So other than that, I hope you have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next video.